Hello, and welcome back to the Early Warning System online implementation modules. This session will cover Module 3, Intervention Planning. We'll begin by opening our browser. I'm going to be using Firefox, but Internet Explorer and Google Chrome will also work. Let's begin by putting in our address, ews.educationnorthwest.org. Since previous sessions have included how to create an account, I'm going to assume that you have your username and password already set up. Let's go to the modules. We will discuss Module 3, Intervention Planning, but as a quick reminder, if you've inputted data into the system, you'll see this gray box appear on your screen. Choosing Resume will take you to the last place that you inputted data. Choosing Erase will delete everything that's been entered into the modules. Please only choose Erase if you truly want to start over. Let's go to Module 3 and begin by looking at supports and interventions. We strongly suggest using a tiered framework of support for students and leveraging initiatives that might be using similar structures to help support students. The first group activity will be to create a catalog of all of the interventions that you have in your school that are focused on supporting students in the various indicators that they might be flagged in. After we input the information on all of the available interventions, here we simply hit Enter and generate this list. We can then take each one of these interventions and assign it to a tier. Notice that you can't take the same intervention and apply it to two different tiers. Also, you can delete interventions, but only after they've not been assigned to a tier. We're going to go ahead and do this for each one of our indicators so that we start to have a full list and catalog of what we have available to support our students. Now that we have our catalog of interventions defined, we want to look at the whole entire thing. By looking at this, we can decide where our strengths are and where there might be possible gaps in our supports. We also want to document what our vision for the future is. So for example, if we have several Tier 3 interventions and no Tier 1 interventions, our vision might be to be more proactive by defining additional Tier 1 interventions for our students. I also want to point out that up in the informational paragraph, there's a link to a workbook that might be easier for your team to fill out. Simply click on the link and you'll be provided with an option to download an Excel spreadsheet that your team can use. The next thing that we want to do is start to look at the data itself and the reports that we have. First, we want to identify the indicator where we have the most students on track. Then we want to identify the indicator where the most students are off track. Let's say English, for example. This will help us decide where our initial point of focus should be. Let's go with English since that's where we have the most students off track. Next, our team needs to decide how we're going to prioritize the students that we focus on. Most likely, you'll flag more students than you have time to talk about in one team meeting. Many teams immediately think about the students who are most at risk. Typically, these are the students that everybody already knows are off track for graduation. Two other ways to prioritize students, though, are those who are most likely to get back on track and those who have had a recent significant change. By focusing on these two areas, you might be able to have more wins earlier on in the implementation process, which can help build support for the entire system. I also have known teams to create a whole separate team just to look at those students who are most at risk. Now that we've identified the indicator that our team is going to be focusing on and the priority focus of students that we'll be talking about, we can start to look at an individual student. Please note that this module allows you to only talk about one student at a time. I have put my name in here as an example. I then want to look at why this student has been flagged as off track. For this, let's say it's attendance, which is driving the issue. We want to look at what the data tells us. And when we see my attendance data, we see that I was actually in the hospital. We then want to assign one of our team members to take the lead on the student and facilitate communication with the family. As we identified earlier, the indicator of interest for this student is going to be attendance. Next, we need to think about what are some other areas of concern that might be driving the problem with attendance. These might be academic, or something with the school environment, something with the socio-emotional learning of the student, or possibly outside factors. For this case, since I was in the hospital, I'm going to choose outside factors. Now that we know the potential root cause is outside factors, we wanted to have some more discussions on other things that might be affecting my performance in this indicator. Here, you'll want to have a conversation with the rest of your team about any types of additional information that the team knows about the student. You also want to complete what the next steps that you're going to be taking with the student are. Finally, now that we have all of this information, we want to look at the interventions that we have available. Most likely, Tier 1 interventions are going to be already in place for everyone. But if we had more interventions listed under this category, we could begin to look at what we have provided in the past and identify any new interventions that we want to try to support the student with. We conclude this module with some next steps and additional resources that you might find helpful for directing your team. Thank you for listening in to the walkthrough of Module 3. Please join us next for a walkthrough of Module 4.